Welcome to the Small Town Times podcast. I'm here today with Phil Koning. Thanks for coming in.
You're welcome.
I see you have a bit of a bone to pick with the minute takers at the municipalities.
Yeah, well, a little one anyway.
Might seem trivial to some, but it's very important when it gets into issues. I know as a journalist covering city councils, and when you go to check the minutes and you find out they're very scant and vague, it's no use, right?
Right.
So tell me about your what your problem was or what your issue was and what you found out.
Well, that's exactly what happened. Is I went to find out more about a particular issue. I can't really remember what it was specifically, but there was a meeting where that item was discussed, and I went there trying to find the gist of the conversation that was had, and there's nothing. There's very little difference between an agenda and the minutes of a meeting. There's not a lot of detail there. So I looked at the what the Ombudsman had said about what council should do in terms of minutes, and I found he'd already ruled on actually it was from Bonfield Council, and he gave a list of what the minutes of a meeting should contain. And when I had complained to the city clerk at that time that the minutes didn't really reveal anything.
Is the city of North Bay?
The city of North Bay,
Okay.
yeah. I had written a letter or sent an email to the clerk saying, I'd like the full minutes of the meeting. And she replied saying, well, you've got them. That's what we do. And she said the legislation says that they must take minutes without note or comment. So I looked at that, and I went into the specific legislation and read it. And it was clear to me that meant the author of those minutes, the minute taker, should not inject their own comments or notes in the minutes. It should be a recording of what was discussed. But that was the city's interpretation, was that their minutes should have no notes or comments in them.
Well, that's a little convenient.
Well, and that's
inconvenient for others.
Yeah, really, it doesn't provide much useful information. But so that's what the Ombudsman ruled on, was that this is what minutes should contain, and this is what they should be. So I looked at that and wondered, how does an organization that boasts of its transparency and accountability make such an interpretation that restricts the information coming out of a meeting? Like, to me, they just don't balance. But that's the way it was, and apparently that's the way it still is. When I listened to councillors like Jamie Lowry, who was looking for minutes of a special committee meeting. Mm-hmm. Now, in council's case, a lot of those meetings, or all of the council meetings, are videotaped. So as long as you've got good audio on your video recording, you can get the gist of the conversation that was had. But special committee meetings aren't videotaped, so there's no record of what was discussed.
So basically, it's a failure to provide the information necessary for someone to understand a decision being made, because the particulars of a meeting aren't expressed in the minutes.
Exactly, and I think it is an important matter, because when KPMG did their recent review, they farmed out the communication section to I think it's Red Brick Communications. Mm-hmm. And they did an entire presentation on how important communication was in the organizational review. And to me, one of the foundational elements of a communication plan is the minutes of any meeting that's taken place.
I agree. When you look at the minutes from meetings in municipalities decades ago, there was more information.
Absolutely, yeah.
I remember when I was covering a lot of different meetings, you could actually rely on the minutes to some extent to understand what was, proposed, discussed, and then decide it.
Yeah.
Pretty simple.
None of that's in there anymore. Like,
Yeah.
and there have been complaints from other community members as well. Like, I'm not the only one, but there's just no. Again, it's one thing to say you're transparent and accountable, but if your actions don't meet the words, it rings pretty hollow.
And this is a pretty easy thing because, you have paid staff attending, they're taking minutes, they have the information. Usually minutes are provided for a board to approve so that if there's any problems with what is said, it can be pared down from there.
Yeah.
But if they start with nothing, they end up with nothing.
Exactly.
As far as minutes go.
It's hard to hold somebody accountable when you don't know what they were promised.
So is there anybody that you think that should be this should be addressed to in particular at this point?
I thought the Ombudsman would be the one, but apparently not.
His rulings don't matter much?
Because the municipality doesn't... the Ombudsman can't enforce any of his rulings for the municipality.
Right.
So they're free to do whatever they want to. The only people who can hold them to account are the voters. So that's what needs to be known before people take office is what's your position on. Again, there's a lot of issues that come ahead of minute taking, but communication, it's all part of communication, which is from what I hear and read in the social media, it's a big issue for a lot of people.
People want more and better, not less.
Exactly.
They held a town hall of sorts recently, asking for information on where they can do better. Mm-hmm. Did you provide any information for that?
No, I again, it was pretty restrictive, and you had to attend, and there was no other venue for you to offer your opinion. And the procedures were kind of. It surprised me actually that there was, with the number of people I've heard complain about downtown and the problems associated with those around there, that topic didn't come up in the town hall. Mm. And if you rely on procedural bylaws to say, well, we can't talk about that, again, it goes against what being transparent and accountable is all about, in my mind.
I think in that particular instance, they weren't prepared to take questions from the floor. I think they were claiming that it had a problem with becoming a true public meeting, whereas I'm not sure everybody from council was there, and it wasn't meant to be that. And if it's going to be, they have to be careful of not holding a meeting without proper notice. Right? So they'd have to, I'm just trying to piece the puzzles together. Yeah. Right? But I think they could have got around it, I think, by just declaring it a town hall council meeting to begin with. And then it would have been an official public meeting. But they also don't like taking questions and having debate and conversation from the floor. It's they seem to want to avoid that more than anything. There's another instance where there was a meeting of different minds of a particular sector in town last week. And what I had heard, and I have to look into it further, is that the city wasn't sure they wanted to be there because it would have set up a situation of potential conflict of in discourse. Mm-hmm. Such a bad thing, right?
Yeah. Imagine
that. People actually saying what's on their mind and having somebody there to answer them at the time.
Yeah.
I think the city's not always wrong in its sort of structure of public attempts at getting information, but I think they should bend over backwards and take it when they give people a chance to air their thoughts. They don't necessarily have to answer them there, but give them a chance to air them and take their question under advisement and answer them later if they have to, if they need to do it legally. right? There's ways around discourse.
Yes, yes. Well, a lot of what the city does, maybe there's things going on behind the scenes that we don't know and can't know. Mm-hmm. But then that should be explained. That because of this, we just can't talk about that at this point. At some point in the future, it usually does, come out and people talk about it then. But still, it seems there's a very protective policy around communications from City Hall. So, and that extends down to the councillors, from what I've seen in the papers, that Councillor Raybosch was complaining that there was, it was very difficult to get all the information she required. So you have to wonder about that.
It was funny in that podcast, we did a little short promoting a piece of it, right? And it was about, I think by the heading I used for it was that the procedural bylaw comes back to haunt her, because she wanted somebody that was asking for a basketball net to be put somewhere to be able to make a presentation. But because of those rules, she wasn't allowed to.
Yeah.
And of course, I didn't like when they tightened up the procedural bylaw, that restricted in some ways, and certainly capped how much discourse and that can be expressed at council meetings and how they go about things. And I thought it was a reducing of opportunity for transparency. Some people say it was just structured, and that it should be, people should expect to have to present beforehand and get approved for, and I'm not so certain. So, but she, Tanya, actually just the other day said that it's wrong to say that the changes to the procedural bylaw came back to haunt her, because she said that it could have been changed if there was a will of council to change it, right? Mm-hmm. But we're arguing. Splitting hairs, really. If the procedural bylaw was more open, then you wouldn't have to change it to allow somebody, right?
Yeah.
So, whatever. It's a complicated thing being on council. You keep a close eye on East Ferris as well, right?
I do, yeah.
As a resident down the road in 94.
Yep.
Anything in particular happen in East Ferris that we should talk about?
There's nothing that comes to mind, but mainly because I'm not, I haven't been thinking about that. I've been busy doing other things at this point in time.
There was a letter to the editor of Bay Today about the good example of why councillors should have to live in the city. Did you see that?
I did see that one, yep.
And that would, depending on people's views, obviously the only one in council that is living outside the city is Mark King. But he owns property in the city. He lives there and runs a business. I think it was somebody that was frustrated with his handling of the Social Services Administration Board as chair, coming at him from the side, basically.
I think it's less important where they live as opposed to are they part of the region. And really, North Bay, the city has its own limits and its own tax structure and what have you, but people in the region use North Bay City quite a bit as well. So I think you can still live in an outlying community and be aware of what's going on in North Bay.
Well, for functional aspects, for sure, right? Like everybody living at Osprey Links there in Callander is certainly well acquainted with North Bay, if not from and born and bred in North Bay, and with businesses in North Bay.
Yes.
To say that they don't have a stake in North Bay would be incorrect.
Yeah.
Quite a few people on McPherson, Centennial have a very committed sort of North Bay presence and understanding and grew up here. I think it would be very difficult and then probably illegal to restrict people from where they live, right?
Yeah.
Unfortunately. But there, the point taken is that people need to be very much entrenched in North Bay's issues to be able to understand them.
Absolutely.
So as long as you're very much involved, that could probably make up for the fact that you have slightly less municipal tax to pay where you live outside the city.
Yeah.
But we contribute more in gas.
There you go.
Or, say what you want about that. Any other things? I know you used to be a landlord. Are you still a landlord?
I am not. No.
Yeah. Did you get out of it because it's a real cluster right now?
I got out of it because it was impinging on my retirement enjoyment.
Yeah. Right on.
So being a landlord, it seems real nice, but the calls come at the most inopportune time.
Yeah.
And then you're committed. You have to respond. So
You weren't making enough to make up for that.
No.
Let me ask you this, without getting too personal into your finances, was your your journey into being a landlord, was it very profitable?
I believe it contributed to my financial well-being, yeah.
Okay. How long were you a landlord?
Probably 2003, about 18 years.
And how many properties did you rent out?
2.
Yeah. Households?
Yep.
Yeah. Was it a duplex or?
One was a private home.
Yeah. Good tenants?
For the most part.
Yeah.
By far the majority.
Yeah. So not really a bad experience as a landlord, really?
No.
No?
No. It was, like I say, it was just a commitment that I wasn't prepared to make anymore.
Right. Okay. Well, yeah, I think you probably got out of it at a good time then, because I'm hearing different stories from other people, but I guess it depends on your luck and your investments and who you rent to.
Yeah, it depends on how well you maintain the property as well. So all that plays into it for sure.
Okay. Oh, that's cool. Well, thanks for joining me in this studio, and we're going to have this up on the website to go with this interview. Interested to know if what you think of minute taking and the rules, and if you've ever had any examples of when you went to go find out about something and you couldn't learn anything because the minutes weren't complete. Some examples of that would be appreciated. Just email me at davedale@smalltowntimes.ca. I don't know what else to plug other than the fall edition of the Back in the Bay magazine's out, and I'm slowly getting it out to subscribers. It's at retailers, and appreciate the support. Have a good day.